Okay. I'll come back and remind you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'd like to welcome you guys, everyone, to the facility improvements for the 2022-2027 bond program. Really excited for everyone that's here. My name is Chris Martinez. I was just telling one of our former colleagues on this committee, I live in District 8, I work in District 5. My kids go to school in District 9, so they're all over the place, but really excited to be here. A couple of housekeeping items, women's restroom, you can head straight out past the escalators all the way down to the end, or as soon as you exit, you make a left, come all the way down to the escalators, and there's a set of restrooms there. Obviously, if there's an emergency, hopefully we all know where the exit is, just get down the escalators, out the front door to safety, okay? So that's kind of the housekeeping we'll go through. Mr. Robinson?
Thanks a bunch, Chris. I guess it's time to get this started. So firstly, it's obviously great to see each of you all here this evening, and thank you for your commitment to volunteer service. I guess one of the thoughts that crossed my mind was, so $1.2 billion, that's a lot of money. And I remember a few years ago, I was having a conversation with then Commissioner Kevin Wolf when he was the chair of the MPO. And there were about, I don't know, $5, $6, $7 billion worth of projects that they were going to fund. And that number just kind of blew me away. But I'll never forget he made the comment that we're going to fund about $5, $6, $7 billion worth of projects, whatever that number was back then, but the need far exceeded that. So as we move forward with everything that we're going to be doing as a part of this committee, just bear in mind that even though $1.2 billion is a lot of money, the need far exceeds that. As I was walking in talking to our city manager, Eric Walsh, I mentioned that $1.2 billion is a lot of money, but the need far exceeds it. So look forward to working with each of you. I look forward to hearing your unique perspectives about your districts. I'm a District 2 resident, and I look forward to working with each of you.
Absolutely. The many city leaders in this room, and I'm talking around this table right here, and whatever it may be, your neighborhood association, the nonprofit, but this is a big commitment for all of us. Excited, like Dwayne said, that we're all here. And I think at the end, right, it's for the city of San Antonio. Well, we've got when I sat in your seats in the 2012 bond election, I was primarily focused on my district and what could I bring to my District 6. And now being here, it's a whole different eyesight level of trying to figure out how we can make this work. So grateful of everyone that's here. Just let's silence our phones. Let's make sure we give respect to everyone as everybody can ask their questions, share their comments, ideas, or thoughts. In lieu of doing the traditional, let's go around and all introduce ourselves, there's a little over 30 of us, which 1 minute a person is going to take 30 minutes. What I've heard with some of the other what Dwayne and I have heard is some of the other committees is what they're doing is when you ask a question, when that time comes, is to introduce yourself and the district that you're with. I'm sure we're going to get to know each other a lot more intimately, but we do have 2 hours. I know that there's some that have some commitments to get back to at home or wherever it may be, but so I guess at this time, Dwayne, if there's nothing else, we'll turn it over to boss man Eric Walsh over there.
I don't know if I like that title, but thank you. For those of you I haven't had a chance to meet, my name is Eric Walsh. I'm the city manager. And let me thank you up front for all the work you'll be doing over the next month and a half. There are 5 groups of 32 individuals that are reviewing bond projects with the goal of delivering a set of recommendations back to council at the end of December. We'll present to them in January. Rod Sanchez, Assistant City Manager, will walk you through and give you some context on where we're at in terms of the bond program. But as Dwayne said, $1.2 billion is a lot of money. It is a tremendous opportunity for the city to lay out our infrastructure plan for the next 5 years. And your group, this group tonight, is here to talk about municipal facilities. And so in terms of a little bit of background, there are 1,165 municipal buildings, everything from fire stations to this building. I'll tell you that as long as I've been with the city, we haven't necessarily done a very good job of maintaining our buildings. And so, and frankly, during COVID last year, we started taking a look at what type of buildings we have. The snow event in February helped stress that we needed to look at our buildings. I could deliver to the council easily $1.2 billion in municipal facility projects. But we prioritized, and what you'll see tonight and over the course of the next couple of meetings are those priority projects from our perspective. For example, the fire department had five fire stations on their list, and they prioritized that list. 3 of them were replacements, and 2 of them were new stations to replace some temporary buildings that we have. Only one fire station, Fire Station 10, is on the current proposed list. And for those of you that know Fire Station 10, it's right there by Little Flower, and it's over 100 years old, and you'll get a chance to see it on the tour, but the floor is collapsing because that building was built when the fire department was using horses. And so there are obviously some buildings that we need to improve. There's also new buildings in the proposal. And so you'll see that it's a mix of existing facilities and maintaining them, as well as adding to the program. I want to introduce the mayor. So the mayor appointed co-chairs for each of the 5 committees, and you have your co-chairs here tonight, Chris and Dwayne. The mayor also appointed 3 tri-chairs to kind of oversee this entire process, and one of them is here tonight. And I wanted to introduce him, Brandon Logan, who's here. The other 2 are Berto Guerra and Jamie Kowalski. And so they're here to help provide that additional support. Over here on this side of the room, you've got folks from the fire department, the police department, building equipment services, public works, the city manager's office, downtown development, ACS. So we're human services. So there's a lot of staff here. I'm sure there will be questions. Rod will kind of walk through what the plan is and how we facilitate and provide the support over the next month and a half. And thank you for joining us. Rod?
All right, thank you, Eric, and welcome everybody. And once again, thank you so much for your service. We do, as Chris said, this is a time commitment. So we appreciate you taking time away from your family to be here with us. But we have some important work to do. Dwayne, you hit the nail right on the head. 1.2 billion is a lot of money, and we're going to do a lot of good with 1.2 billion. But when you have 6.6 billion worth of needs at a minimum, you're going to see that we have some tough decisions to make. So that's where you guys come in. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to talk to you about just overview of the bond program, so you get a feel for what's in there. We'll go over your roles and responsibilities. Our city attorney's office will talk about the ethics and meeting guidelines for you to follow. Then we're going to walk you through the projects. There's 17 of them that we're recommending. We'll share with you why they're recommended and what they're going to do. So you'll get a little bit more detailed look, and then we'll talk about next steps. All right, so 1.2 billion. So how did we start? We have very good financial folks that looked at our taxes and basically, what could we afford in a bond program without raising taxes? And they came up with a conservative number of 1.2 billion. So we started there. We had a B session with the city council and just kind of framed it for them. Here we have streets, we have parks, we have drainage issues, facility issues, and we got their sense, where do you want, where do you want to spend the dollars? And then on October the 13th, we had a B session with them, and based on the feedback we got from council, we put a plan together, and you can see how that plan looked. It had $450 million in streets. There were $300 million in parks, which included $126 million for our Greenway Trails. I'll talk a little bit more about that because if you've been watching, that got a lot of attention from our council members that day and at the following meeting. We'd suggested 150 for drainage, 150 million, 150 million for housing, 150 million for facilities, this committee. And of course, public art. Council shared with us, they wanted to raise the 1% in the previous bond to 1.5%. So that's that amount there. We broke up the bond into citywide projects and regional projects, and of course, district projects. In 2017, we had quite a bit of money going to citywide projects, and a lot of concern about that. A lot of folks said we really need the money to go back to our districts, so we were conscious of what we heard there. So we were suggesting 129 million going to citywide and 87 going to regional. And you're probably saying, what's regional? Regional is a new category. So those of us that work in the area of planning, we have the SA Tomorrow plan, and in there's 13 regional centers. So, folks throughout the city, spend a lot of time working on those plans. And I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of folks that have worked on my planning commission, zoning commission, and neighborhood leaders here. So the work that goes into putting a neighborhood plan together. So, our thought is if we're going to put a lot of money into one of these regional centers plans, we need to implement the plan. You implement a plan with land use, zoning, right? And the other way is by spending some capital dollars in those areas. So that's what that category represents when you see regional. So we shared this with council that day, got a lot of feedback from them. And so we went and met with them individually after that. The city manager, myself, Lori Houston, went and met with them. So we heard all these comments. We heard you say you wanted more money going to drainage, more money going to streets, less money in parks. So we got a better sense for what they wanted to do. So we went back on the 27th, based on the comments we heard on the 13th and those individual meetings, and we came up with a new proposal. So you can see on the right here of the screen, this is the new proposal. This is more or less what you have in your packets. So we increased streets based on their comments to 480 million. Parks was reduced to 270 more million, and the linear creeks dropped from 126 to 110 million. Drainage was increased to 162 million, and we kept housing at 150, and facilities was decreased to 134 million. Of course, public art stayed the same. You can see citywide projects, that was reduced to 99 million. As we did hear from council saying, we'd like even more money to go towards our districts, less to citywide. So 99 million there. And regional went up to 102 million. The reason that went up is there's Port SA had a street project that was not included in our original recommendation. We heard from council on the 13th, we really need to do that project. So that was 15 million for that project. So that's why that category went up. We've got to point it over there. I got to find the computer. Here is the details. I'm not going to read that slide to you. You have it with you. But you can see these to change from the 13th to the 27th. You can see what we reduced. Those are specific, what we added. Those are the specific projects that we added in streets and drainage. And you can see what we reduced to get there. So we have the details there. If you have questions about that, we're here to answer that. So a little bit of discussion about the Greenway Trails, because this was the lightning rod, it seemed like, with the council. Why did staff recommend so much go to the Greenway Trails? And it goes back to a vote that we San Antonio took when we allocated the money that was going towards aquifer protection. We allocated that sales tax to go towards workforce development and to VIA. So SAWS picked up the aquifer protection, but a big piece of that that was left out was the Greenway Trail. So with SAWS picking that up, the question was posed to staff, well, what's going to happen to the Greenway Trails? We have some 45 miles that the city committed to completing the trails. The county has about 25 miles. What are we going to do? So city manager said, what we can do is we will pick it up in the next 2 bond cycles. And so if we're going to pick it up in the next 2 bond cycles, we thought it makes sense to at least do half of that, this bond, and then we'll pick up the other half in 2027. So that's why we recommended so much. There's a little bit more than half there. There's a group called Activate SA who's come to us. It's one of those outside agencies that came to us and they said, we'd like to even do more than complete those trails. We'd really like to make more connections to the trails. And they have like a $90 million project that they want to do. So this also adds a little bit of money towards Activate SA and doing about half of our commitment. And of course, the county is supposed to do, $83 million worth of their completion of the projects over the next 10 years. So with this plan, the next 10 years, we can complete our trails. And, for those of you who get a chance to walk in them, they're nice. So anyway, so I wanted to share that with you, why so much? Because that was kind of our commitment that we shared with the council back when the tax changed. All right, so what do the propositions look like? And I want to share with you, I'm going to lay this out. There's $400 million for streets, $274 million for parks, $162 million for drainage. We have $150 million going towards housing. And, you heard me say $134 million for this group. Well, this group, you're taking on two propositions. By state law, we can't combine public safety with municipal facilities. We have to separate them into two propositions. So you can see municipal facilities will have $61 million, and there's 9 projects in there. And then on the public safety part is $73 million, and we have 8 projects there. Like I said, Razi will go into details with you. Now, don't get too focused on these numbers. Don't get too comfortable with these numbers. These numbers are going to change a tad bit. The streets number is going to change a little bit. The parks number is going to change a little bit, and the drainage number is going to change a little bit. Because in our projects, we have a lot of district projects. And we heard from Council District 8, Council District 9 that they wanted to make some adjustments. We just finalized those changes today. So the next time we meet, you're going to see a slight adjustment to street, a slight adjustment to parks, and a slight adjustment to drainage. And we'll share that with you. As soon as we're going to put that out to council, as soon as we have that, we will share that with you. So this is pretty close to what you're going to be dealing with, but there should be no changes to what your committee is dealing with. I just want to share with you overall, there's going to be some slight changes. So when you see that, I warned you, right? So another way to look at the bond is percentages. You can see 40% is going towards streets, 23% towards parks. Now keep in mind, that includes $110 million for the Greenway Trails. And we have 13% to drainage and 11% towards facilities, and housing has 13%. And here's another way to look at it. As I mentioned, there was a lot of feedback from council. They wanted a lot of attention in their district. So 60% of this bond is going towards those district-wide projects, 13% towards housing. You see our Greenway Trails gets 9%, regional 9%, and citywide. Citywide's only 8%. So we've reduced those citywide projects and really focused on the district projects. So here's your committee. As you know, there's 32 of you. The mayor made some appointments. The mayor appointed your co-chairs, and he appointed the co-chairs for the other 4 committees, and he appointed the tri-chairs as well. So you're the group that's going to help make is going to vet these projects and make a recommendation back to council to what you want to see in the bond package. Eric stole my thunder. He already introduced the tri-chairs, so Brandon's still with us. And you can see these are the committees. You can see the different co-chairs that we have. You have John Bailey, Paula Fernandez are co-chairing the streets. Drainage is Chris Garcia, Suzanne Scott, Jeanette Honerman, and Jim Bailey are doing parks. And then, of course, we have Chris and Dwayne for facilities. And Katie Vell and Shirley Gonzalez are the co-chairs for housing. I'm not going to, this is all of you. So if you're interested in who your colleagues are in this committee, look at the PowerPoint. You can see everybody. I'm not going to read everybody's name, but you're a committee of 32 strong that are going to help us get through the facilities portion of the bond package. And so what are you going to do? Well, you're going to hear from us. You're going to hear from staff. We're going to present to you proposed projects. We'll even share with you projects that didn't make the list. It's your job to question us. It's your job to question those projects and ask, do these projects make sense? Do we want to spend, our bond dollars on these projects? Are there other projects that we want to consider. I shared with the other committee that when I became an assistant city manager, my phone stopped ringing. As a director of development services, people are calling me all the time. As assistant city manager, nobody calls you. And I'm not complaining, so don't feel bad for me. But when this bond project, we started talk about the bond, my phone doesn't stop ringing. There's all kinds of people that have called because they want to get their project included. Even this week, there's people calling and say, we really need to consider this project. So there's a lot of projects out there. You're going to hear from folks that their project's not on the list, but it's your job to listen to them, understand their projects, and decide whether it makes sense to fund them. And if it makes sense to fund those projects, what project do you want to remove from the list? That's where it gets tough, because we haven't really seen too many bad projects. They're all great projects, all projects we'd love to fund, but we have to prioritize. We have $134 million that we have to live with. So if we want to add something, we have to remove something from the list. So that's where the discipline comes in. And this is a very passionate subject. This is something that people feel very passionate about, and they should, because like I said, we're going to do a lot of good for our city. But what I ask this committee is that we be respectful and we really listen to everybody. Everybody's coming from a different place. Let's hear them. Let's understand them. Let's be respectful to one another. And I think that'll make the process go a lot faster. And Chris and Dwayne will help us manage through those discussions. Fortunately, you have 17 projects that we're recommending, so there's plenty of time to spend on those. But you do want to move, just move quickly as quickly as you can, because you want to make sure you understand all those projects and plus the other projects that are to come. So as a committee, you're gonna have a lot of questions, and you're gonna ask staff for a lot of information. That's great, and we're here to provide you that information. But what I ask is that anything you want from us, that you ask at this committee, you ask at one of these meetings, and what we're going to do is we're going to take that down, take your request down, and we're going to give you a response within 48 hours. We will provide a response to you and the rest of the committee. And the reason I want that is I don't want different districts calling us or emailing us and asking for something 3 days from now, and then we respond to you, and then District 3 thinks that we're working with District 8, so they can get District 3. We don't want that. We want to be completely transparent. We want everyone to know and understand what is being requested of us, and then we want everyone to see that response so that we're all on the same level and everybody understands what's being distributed to you. So that's one ground rule that I ask that you respect. It's not that we don't want to. Not that everybody's not special and we don't want to provide that information. We just want to be fair to everybody in the room and make sure everybody knows what's being requested. And then we want everybody to see what that information is that we share with them. So this is kind of the layout for the meetings. Today we're just kind of getting oriented. We'll hear from the city attorneys on your responsibilities and your ethical responsibilities. And then meetings 2 and 3, you're going to hear from folks. You're going to hear from citizens. You're going to deliberate about the different projects. And then meeting 4 is where you're going to deliberate and take final action. So that's this is another ground rule that I ask that you respect. If you want to make a motion to change something, during this meeting, the second meeting, the third meeting, that's fine. But I ask that you not vote on that. Let's save all the voting for the 4th meeting. Because if we start taking motion and considering motions, things are going to get really confusing the first 3 meetings. What we'd rather do is, if you want to make a change, you can make that change known. And I'm going to ask Chris and Dwayne to table that. And then come the 4th meeting, we'll take up that action at that time, along with any other motions that you want to make. So, the first meetings are for you to really understand the process. And then the 4th meeting is when you're going to take action and you're going to make a recommendation to City Council. So that's another thing that I ask of the group. So here's the calendar. You can see the facilities group. You get the yellow square. So we're meeting today. The 4th, the next meeting will be in 2 weeks, and then you won't meet again until December, and then you're going to meet back-to-back weeks after that. Transparency, as I mentioned, we want everything to be transparent. We want everyone to know what's going on. Every piece of information we give you, we want everybody to see. So we have a website. So when you do request information of us and we provide that to you, it's going to go on that website. So anybody in the city of San Antonio that's interested in that can go to the website and see that information. Those bond packets that we gave you, all that information is on that website. So once again, just want to be transparent, want everybody to see what the committee has and what the committee is deliberating on. So the timeline for this is, as I mentioned, we're going to be meeting as committees from now through December. And then in January, as committee members, we're going to make a presentation to City Council, you're going to make the recommendation to Council. This is what we think should be in the bond package for the voters to consider. Council's going to listen to you, ask you questions that day. And then on February 10th, Council's going to actually vote on what the package is going to look like. And they're going to call the election. And then on May 7th, the voters are going to decide whether they want this to pass or not. So that's kind of the process for us that we're going to follow. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Biediger to walk you through the next exciting portion of our presentation.
Hold on to your hats.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lisa Biediger with the City Attorney's Office. And Danielle and I are just going to talk to you briefly about some of the ethical and meeting responsibilities you'll have on this committee. Our main goal is to really just help you get the meetings to run smoothly so that you can get all your work done, because we know you've got a lot to get accomplished. I'm going to start out by giving you a little background on ethics and how the ethics will play out in your role on this committee. The City Ethics Code and the Campaign Finance Code do not apply to you as members of bond committees. However, we ask that committee members use their individual judgment in deciding whether or not they should vote on a particular item. And although it's not required, we ask that if something appears to be a conflict of interest to you, that you recuse yourself from voting on that matter. So in this context, recuse means not to vote on something or not to even engage in the discussion. So it's up to you whether or not you have a conflict of interest. If you ever have a question about it, feel free to talk to me, but it's really something we're leaving up to each committee member to decide. In the context of bond projects, a conflict of interest would be a bond project that is likely to directly affect the economic interest of the committee member, their parent, child, spouse, or other family member, or a business in which the committee member or a family member has an interest. Because the bond committees are advisory, participation will not prohibit you from seeking a city contract. A committee member should not use their official position on this committee to gain an unfair advantage or to advance a private interest. For example, committee members should not use their position to promote their consulting firm or any other business, nor should they seek or obtain confidential information to support a future city bid proposal. A committee member may not disclose any confidential information gained by their service on the committee, including representing any person, group, or entity before any of the board committees. Any of the bond committees, I apologize. Committee members should not accept any gift from any source that influences or rewards official conduct, nor should the committee members accept any gifts that the member knows or should know is being offered to gain such influence. There are some exceptions to this gift rule: items of nominal value, meals up to $50, admission to training or education programs if it's related to your official duties, admissions to events attended in a ceremonial capacity or as an official representative of the city, and gifts from friends that are in keeping with the personal relationship. And now Danielle will talk to y'all briefly about the specific meeting requirements.
Hello, I'm Danielle Schick. I'm one of the attorneys with the City Attorney's Office, and I will be with you through these 4 meetings along with Lisa. The tri-chairs and the co-chairs will be presiding over the meeting, and we will be using Robert's rules to guide these meetings. The meeting excludes any social functions, any conventions or workshops, but it can be electronic communication. With the meetings, we need to be deliberating with a quorum to conduct the public business. The meeting requirements are going to require a quorum and a simple majority of the members. And for this group, having 32 members, a simple quorum would be half plus one, so 17 in order to start the meeting. When we're in later down the road in the voting, you'll need to have a quorum to vote. And you will only be taking action on what's on the agenda. Anything that's not on the agenda will not take any action on. These committee meetings are open to the public. Meetings 2 and 3 will be open for citizens to make comments. At that time, when they do make comments, we ask that y'all be active listeners. Just listen, don't respond. It's time for them to give their feedback, and there's no response needed. And the committee chairs will determine the time limit for those comments. When it comes to giving feedback or comments within the committees, we're asking that each district pick one spokesperson. That spokesperson can change, but in order to help facilitate time is one commenting for the whole group. And that is all that we have with regards to the meetings, and I will turn this all over to the Director of Public Works, Razi.
Good evening, and thank you for your participation as we refine our project recommendation for the proposed 2022 bond program. I am Razi Hosseini, Director, City Engineer for Public Works Department. As it was mentioned with Rod, the city's infrastructure needs are significantly greater than the proposed 2022 bond. Therefore, we use the following guiding principle when we were selecting project for recommendation. Connectivity was one of them. Project will enhance access to communities and align with city's adopted plan. Public health and safety. Project will enhance public health, wellness, safe connectivity to community destination, and will promote sustainable green infrastructure. Resiliency. Project will improve existing conditions to protect, adapt, and respond to natural and man-made hazards. We learned early this year when we had snow and ice, we want to make sure if it happens again, more likely it will happen, our road is drivable, traffic signal is working, fire department can respond what they need to respond for. Therefore, it's very important our facility be designed for resiliency. Equity has been a very big factor for City of San Antonio for the last few years. Project will support infrastructure improvement within community of color and low income. Of course, the last but not least, council input was very important. Council knows their communities need most of the time better than we do. We have been working with council very closely and get some idea regarding this project from each council's office. As city manager mentioned, it's hard to believe we have 1,165 different size buildings, some bigger, some large, some smaller. Aviation has 132. CCDO or downtown has 95. The largest building we have in Parks and Recreation Department, 539 facilities. I'm going to discuss first municipal facility and public safety together, but later on I will provide detail each of those and each of the projects we are recommending. Overall, for these two propositions, 134 million, 17 project. For a district project is a 61 million, 5 project. What's the definition of district project? District project is really serving mostly that district. 59 million I'm sorry, 58 million for citywide project. Citywide project is serving mostly the entire city of San Antonio. For example, Central Library in downtown, serving for entire city of San Antonio, not only downtown. And of course, we have 2 million for art, which is 1.1% of the 134 million. And we have a 13 million or 12.8 million for project within the region. Region is, as Rod mentioned, we have 13 region. For example, downtown is one of them, Medical Center, Brooks, Portese, A&M, and other. We have 13 of those, and we have 2 projects located on these centers. Anytime we are designing a new project or renovating existing one, we look to see how can we design these facilities to be sustainable. We look for water efficiency, energy efficiency, material reuse, indoor environmental quality. No matter brand new building or renovation, roadway project, drainage project, or park project. On building project, we can do more than we could do on the roadway project, but we try to do on every project as possible. Municipal facility and public safety, 52 million, 5 project, which is included a cultural and civic facility and public safety, 81 million for 10 project, library and cultural and art facility, and resilience improvement. I will be discussing these in more detail in future slides. Municipal city facility, citywide, 18 million for project. For example, we have 6 million for municipal facility resilience improvement. Mainly on any building, we need to have a generator or other improvement. We have 6 million reserved for that. We have another 6 million for Central Library, 3.5 million for World Heritage Phase 2, and we have 2.25 million for K9 Warrior. Central Library, built in 1995, 250,000 square foot. The facility assessment conducted in 2021 identified a little over $11 million deficiency. We need to take care of it. We have 6 million. Our plan is to take care of starting the health and safety and welfare deficiency first. And every bond project in last few years, bond program, we have done some work on Central Library. K9 Warriors, this is the one as we did not have on our original recommended list. This list came for us last few weeks. We have included this one, located in 4630 Highway 151, adjacent to Animal Care Center. The phase 1 was opened September of this year, and this is going to be additional for this facility. World Heritage Center Phase 2. Phase 1 is under design, and we are going to add this for complete the Phase 4 of the World Heritage Center, located at Mission Marquee Plaza, to possibility of including and enhancing the existing structure, expanding the parking and comprehensive campus signage package, potential trail extension, and other. This project will be done in September 2024. Citywide municipal facility resilience improvement. As I mentioned, we have 6 million for any city facility. We are investigating to see if we have to include a generator and other to make sure if we have anything like we had early this year, be able to our facilities functioning. Spanish Governor is one of them. Municipal record facility, another one, and International Center is the third one. Municipal Facility Regional Center Project, 12.8 million. We have 2.75 million for Magic Theater, which many of you know located in downtown, and we have 10 million for Tower of America, which was built in 69. Magic Theater, this is the one as picture you can see. We are going to do some replacing the air handling building and installing a new roof on this facility. As part of 2017 bond program, we also spent 1 million in this project. Tower of America, this is the one, as I mentioned, was built in 1968, is many years old, and we are going to repair and upgrade fire protection and fire alarm system, replace a stucco soffit system at the top of the tower, and of course, replace the emergency lighting. Municipal project, the district project, 29.3 million, 3 project. One of them is in Council District 2, Carver Branch Library, 12.5 million. The second one is also in Council District 2, Ella Austin. We are proposing 11.5 million from bond and also additional 11.5 million from TERS. Altogether will be $23 million. And we have 5.25 million for District 5, Las Palmas Branch Library. Did I go too far? Yeah, this is the Carver Branch Library, 1.2 million. Scope is include renovation and expansion of Carver Branch Library to bring up to regional library system, constructed in 1973. Ella Austin is another facility in Council District 2. We are proposing 11.5 million from bond and 11.5 million from TERS. Altogether will be 23 million. The scope will include renovation and facility improvement to Ella Austin Community Campus, to include but not limited to building envelope, interior modification, upgrade to major building system, and site improvement. Las Palmas Branch Library, 5.2 million. This is located in Council District 5. The overall facility concept design was done early this year, identified $8.2 million. We have 5.2 million for this project. Public art for municipal facility, 15% of the budget for this one. It will be slightly under $1 million, 896,000, which will include for public art. Public health and safety citywide project, almost 41 million for project, 15 million for animal care hospital, this is the brand new we're going to build next to existing animal care. 3.7 million for public health facility resilience improvement, 11 million for public safety and resilience improvement, and 11 million for Texas Biomedical Research Institute. This is the one animal care hospital, 15 million, which is located on Highway 151 in Council District 6. Construction of 7,200 square foot of hospital to include renovation and expansion of the clinics to enhance overall medical care services. Texas Biomedical Research Institute. This is another $11 million located in Council District 6. Requesting funding to assist from Bexar County and City to address resilience improvement, including modernizing electrical grid, backup power generator, upgrade the HVAC, and so on. Citywide public health facility and resilience improvement, $3.7 million. One of them is going to be East Side Branch. The other one is North Side Health Clinics and Buena Vista Clinics. East Side Branch, we are anticipating to be 1.8 million. Northeast Health Clinics will be 900,000, and Buena Vista will be 950,000. Citywide facility resilience improvement, 11.1 million. We are looking to do some fire station and police substation resilience improvement. We have fire station 29, fire station 35, and we are in process of finishing the facility assessment for SAPD. They will be finished later this year, early December. We will include some resilience improvement on those also. Public safety district project, 31.5 million, 2 projects located in Council District 1 and 3, 12.5 for Council District 1, Fire Station number 1, as City Manager mentioned, built more than 100 years ago, and we have 19 million for police substation in Council District 3. This is the one is for Fire Station number 10, built in 1914, over 100 years ago. It really requires replacement as soon as we can. New police substation in Council District 3, we had 500,000 through the previous year budget process. We have identified 7 or so sites in Council District 3. We are working very closely with councilwomen to kind of maybe select one of those or 2 of those. Then we can start negotiating to buy. And when the funding is available, we can design and build it. This is the art for public safety, 1.1 million. Again, each proposition other than the housing, they are going to have 15% for arts. On 2012, we built arts for project. When the project was a small amount, like let's say $1 million, 1% of 1 million is not much. We couldn't do too much really artwork on those facilities. Since 2017, rather than doing public art per project, we end up doing regional and do a good size artwork. And this will be the same time for 2022. This is end of our presentation. Myself, Rod, City Attorney's Office, and we have many department heads here. If you have a detailed question for library, fire station, community center, other, we are happy to answer.
Ross, thank you very much. Just like you said, we'd like to thank Eric Walsh, Rod, Danielle, Lisa for the presentation. I can only imagine it took a lot of time to put that together. And probably a lot of questions were swirling around. Before I turn it over for Dwayne for a second for a couple of comments, is just as you ask clarifying questions, this is a part of the meeting where we can go into some dialogue, process. Everything's open on the table relative to what we're here for today. And so just when you do ask for the mic, I believe your light should come on and just introduce yourself and the district you're with. So hopefully through that method, we can get to know everybody name and face.
Thank you again to staff for the presentation, very thorough. We got a chance to participate in the orientation a few days ago, so I'll forego any questions I may have that I asked at that previous meeting. So we'll open up the floor to the community, to our committee.
Yes, sir, Jordan.
Jordan Gowie, District 1. So I'm not sure if this is a Razi question or a Rod question, but before I saw the list of projects that staff has recommended, where are the list of projects that did not make it into the final staff recommendations, but were evaluated by the city?
We had almost 400 projects requested at value of, I believe, 2.8 billion. We have those projects. We can provide you those lists. Of course, we couldn't really fund $2.8 billion, but we have the list.
Good. I like homework. What was the grading criteria utilized to move these projects forward?
As I mentioned, connectivity was one of them. We end up having one criteria to use on roadway, drainage, and park, because we didn't want to change for everything else.
But can that grading criteria be shared with the committee so we understand why the projects you selected moved forward?
We can, one of the connectivity was one of them. Public health and safety was another one. Resiliency was another one.
Yes. So Razi, I understand that, and Mercy, thank you. But that's still only whatever the number of projects here that moved forward. There were still 400 others. So I get that there was a criteria, but I'd like to see the actual grading rubric, if that's something that can be provided to us to give us a better understanding.
Certainly, we will provide that. That's one of those things that you're going to ask for that we'll provide to you within the 48 hours. So we will certainly provide that to you. But one thing that you don't really see on here is the feedback we got from the individual council members. We spent a lot of time, 2-3 months ago before, we had all these projects. We spent time with them asking them, what are your priorities? What do you want to see in your district? You represent Councilman Bravo, who's, fresh off the campaign trail. He heard a lot from those citizens while he was campaigning. So we put a lot of weight in what the council people were telling us. So once again, we're happy to share with you all those projects. We're happy to share with you the scoring, and how they did according to these guiding principles. So you'll have all that. You can see that. At the end of the day, you use that to decide, what you want to do. And I failed to mention this, but since we're getting into this process, it's probably a good idea for this committee. You have your budget, right? It's probably a good idea for y'all to come up with a few projects that are just below the line that you rank, and the message to council would be, should you as council decide to change the size of these buckets and you want to add more dollars to facilities, these are the projects that we recommend you fund. So
Exactly.
that's something else that I'd like to recommend to this group.
All right, and then my absolute final question is, how do these facilities tie into the SA Tomorrow comprehensive plan? We know you spent a lot of time to build a 25-year plan for the city. Is there a way that we can figure out how these tie in there? And then is there any other city reports that you've used, like Treasure in the Walls and other things about deconstruction that has helped maybe formulate some of the decisions for these recommendations? Sorry, that was a question. Did you use the SA comprehensive plan to help drive this?
We look for SA Tomorrow. Any project was on those 13 sites identified by SA Tomorrow. We put some additional weight on those projects.
Mercy, Russi.
Right.
I think I'd like to also, Jordan, great questions. John Peter is here. John should be disseminating a lot of the information to everyone on the committee. And I think, John, I'm not sure if the committee got it, but it's in the rubric that you're asking for, Jordan, if we can make sure, yeah, that's in the binder. And I only paid attention, I thumbed through the 186 pages. What's that? 158 pages as I thumbed through it with my kids. That rubric's in there, graded by the core values of what this bond program is. So we can make sure that every committee person gets that, could help out. Yes, sir. Mohammed.
Hi, Mohammed from District 2. Quick question. Sorry, Jordan, I don't want to steal any thunder. So with the item number 6 under public safety and health facilities, it says citywide public safety facility and resiliency improvements. Under the scope, it includes police substations and facility generators. Question is, does the facility generators just apply to those public safety buildings, or is that general generators across facilities for the city?
I think we have for both. We have for public safety and a typical municipal facility like libraries and others.
Okay, and so, I mean, the community has shown a lot of interest in understanding how much money is going behind public safety versus the rest of the budget. In the general budget, I think they have the same interest within the bond budget. And so if it's possible to separate the funding that's going to go for generators to public safety buildings and the rest of the city facilities, I think that'd be appreciated by the community.
Sure, we can certainly do that. And for this committee, we got to divide your work into two, right? You have public safety and municipal facilities. So when you're looking at the public safety proposition, those generators are just for those public safety buildings. And if you see any generators on the municipal side, then that'll be for those facilities. So we'll divide that up for you.
Got it. So the 11.1 million there is just for public safety facilities.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And when the time comes, for instance, to that question, we also have, that's when we can ask SAPD to come forward and as well. Should that, right? So all the staff that's here, that's taking their time out after hours to be part of this process with us, it can be a resource to us as well. So great example of a question leveraging the departments. Mohammed. Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Got it? Okay. Thank you. I'm John Nicholas, District 8. I want to just follow up a little bit on the generators. As far as, I have a question for the police and fire. Is it standard for the fire stations and police stations to be equipped with emergency generators already? Or is that something that's new? Are we retrofitting? I'm just kind of curious. I would have thought that they already had those. So I thought while we have the people here, I would like to ask that question.
Yeah, we have someone from fire department here.
Good evening, Chris Monastir, Deputy Fire Chief, SAFD. The answer is yes. They're pretty much standard when they're originally built for the newer stations. So there are a lot of older stations that don't have them. There's some stations that have them, but they're in a state of disrepair. There hasn't been funding to be able to bring those back to life. And so that's what part of this is to bring our fire stations all up to speed with the emergency generators for basic services.
And I'll just add on to Chief, good to see you again. To do that, a generator is like a car. It's got a life of its own as well. So
I'm familiar. I built data centers, so I'm very familiar with the maintenance that needs to happen. But the same is true of the police substations. I mean, obviously, I would think this was a minimum requirement. I'm kind of surprised that we're having to go back and address it. But I do know it takes money.
All right, I think Nathan, you had something.
Yes, good evening. So I would say generally the same response is true there, depending on the substation, whether or not it was originally equipped with a generator at the time. So any facility that doesn't currently have one, then one could be installed.
Okay. So one final thing then. So this funding would catch all of those facilities up, repair the ones that need it, and fix the ones that don't have it? Or is there some list that this only does part of it and there's going to be more is needed?
I think more likely we'll do part of it. Replacing generator, we are anticipating will be probably as close as $300,000 per facility. Right. And many times we have to upgrade the wiring and other. It will not be enough for all of it. But we can do most of it now, and hopefully on next bond or other, we do the remaining.
Okay. Thank you.
And John, not to put words in your mouth for this, but an example of this question where it could go to is asking for the staff to prepare a list of the number of units, equipment, assets that plan to be upgraded and or included, and are those going to be equitably spread across the city, and at what locations? That could be a type of question, not to say that's your question.
No, certainly. Don't like to give people extra work, but if that information is available as part of the plan, kind of gave us a clearer picture of what all is going to be taken care of and what might be left. It would certainly help when we get asked questions from the public, to know that we're putting generators in 100 locations, public safety, rather than 10, something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And, I meant to say this earlier, I'm sure Dwayne would touch on it as well, but what we're doing and what we're trying to vote on with all these dollars and the projects that are out there that need far exceeds what we're trying to do, we got to put together a package that can pass in May. And that's why we're all here, right? We got to hope that there's the public will to invest into our city for the better. And so that's what we're all here for, part of. So thanks, John.
I think, Chair, the challenge we had, we could use $134 million only on library, or only on the fire facility, or only on the police. But we had to distribute money for every our facility gets something. That's the challenge we are dealing with.
Thank you, Razi. Down here at District 5?
Manuel Garza, District 5. On fire station number 10, are you going to tear it down?
We don't know yet. That's probably historic building. I don't think we can really tear it down.
Yeah, no, my uncle was a fireman at that station. When the whole
Then
thing-
we don't touch it.
Don't touch it. No, I mean, touch it, but don't ruin it. Don't ruin it, you know? Yeah, so, and then, of course, you know, is there somebody from the library here?
Yes, we have somebody from, Kathy is from library.
Okay, yeah, I'll need to talk to them afterwards.
After, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get, we
Oh, I'm
had
sorry.
Nathan over here and then we'll come back over here.
Thank you. Nathan Morgan, District 10. As we go through this process, should we anticipate touring some of these locations, or is there some mechanism by which we can lay eyes on some of these projects?
There is a two option. One is you could do on your own if you want to do it. But the fifth meeting will be a tour option for all of the proposition. Streets, drainage, we usually arrange big bus. Last time we met in a development service department at a development service yard at 9 o'clock. And we had city staff on, number of the city staff on each bus. We take the streets and bridges and sidewalk to see the roadway. We take the drainage committee to see the drainage issue, parks to go to park area, facility go see library, fire station, and other. We provide box luncheon someplace on the route. Usually is done by 2 o'clock or so on Saturday.
And we've got that scheduled, we got the tour scheduled for Saturday, December 4th, starting at 9 a.m.?
Correct. We already have it scheduled.
Right. So,
But you could also in advance it if you are interested, but that's our intention to take everybody on Saturday, December 4th.
thank you, Mr. Morgan. We coming back down to District 5, Joy? Okay.
Velma Benya with District 5. I have a question. This has to do with the generators. District 5 had a fire station number 33 on the list, but is no longer on the list. And they have a lot of issues at that fire station, electrical, sewage backup. And the generator hasn't worked in who knows how long. It's already all rusted out. So I wanted to put that out there because they're not on the list. And they went through a snowstorm without a generator. So I just wanted to make sure that I was able to say this because I think it's not on the list, but I hope that something gets done as far as either adding it to the list or at least getting them a generator.
Yeah, if I could just chime in real quickly on that. I know that there are a lot of projects that folks are passionate about just within this committee. So I can only imagine what it will be out in the public when we start the public meetings. I was watching the city council meeting from October the 27th. I was watching it Sunday, and I believe it was stated in 2017, 96% of the bond dollars went towards those recommended projects. 96%. So roughly wiggle room of 4%. I would suggest if you haven't had a chance to kind of watch that October 27th city council meeting, that would be good and good background for you. I guess for me, as watching it and amongst other things, unfortunately, there's changeover in city council. And so priorities for projects change. And so the reality is, I think that we don't have a great deal of flexibility. And I think it would be good for us to kind of just understand that and kind of deal with that moving forward. But again, and staff can correct me from what I saw the other day from that meeting from the 2017 bond, about 96% of those dollars went to those recommended projects.
My suggestion is give us those lists, like as you are saying. We take those lists. When the funding comes available, we can reach out those lists and pull back. Bond is a major source of funding this project, but it's not really the only source of. Let us gather those needs, and we can share. You can share with the council for future funding.
I just want to add one thing. We did work real closely with the fire department of Spania and had them rank, and I think Eric touched on this, had them rank them, and station number 10 came to the top of their list. But, once again, that's what you're here for. You made your point known, and as I stated earlier, we do have we have a hard line, but you may want to come up with some projects below the line that, should council make the bucket a little bit bigger, they would consider these projects. The other thing as a committee member you can do on that fourth meeting where you're taking a vote, if you think this station is a higher priority than station number 10, you could also make your case for that too. So those are just some options to consider.
Quick question for you, Rod. I was curious when we talked about municipal facilities, I had been reading about the proposed $2 billion renovations to the airport. And so with respect to the bond, there's no correlation. Obviously, I don't think I've seen any dollars in this bond that are projected towards the airport.
No, they have a completely different funding source, so that they would do their capital projects through those funding sources.
Thank you, Rod. We had a question right here, District 4. 3.
Sonia Rodriguez, District 3. Yeah. With reference to the new police substation, specifically in District 3, how did you arrive at $19 million? Is that a typical startup cost for a brand new substation?
Yeah, we usually know this. We work very closely with the police department to identify how many square feet they need to have. And we know unit cost per square foot, and that's the way we come up with the price.
Will we be able to see exactly what that looks like?
Graphically?
Just curious as to how big we're talking about, where it might be located, or all those things still up in the air?
We have identified 7 sites. Decision hasn't been made throughout all of the 7 sites throughout the Council District 3. Decision hasn't been made yet for us to buy one of those.
Of course. Okay, thank you.
Perhaps for Mr. Rodriguez, is it, if you desire, it could be the last substation built by the city. What did it look like? What was the size? And what's the likelihood that that could get replicated for the district?
And thank you, Chris, for that follow-up. And Jennifer Ramos, District 3 as well. And so I'm kind of an old person in the bond stages, I guess. I was part of 2007 as a council aide, 2012 as a council member, 2017 on the drainage committee, and now here. So I bring some reference, and I'm just like, this is my first time on the facility. So thank you, staff, for bringing all this together. It really does help the citizens. I know y'all have worked with the council people, and we are kind of this transparency process, right? Like where the voters can really bite into it and decide what they want, and we're here to make sure that they can all buy in, right? So following up on the substation, truly an advocate for it. Obviously, it's in District 3, so it's kind of self-serving, but we're really excited to see that it made the list, first and foremost. But definitely, we don't want anything half done. You know, we really want to make sure that 16 million, 19 million, I think that's being proposed, really does give the square footage, the acreage, the parking, the open access, the accessibility to the community that it deserves. So yes, definitely we would like to see what previous substations, although I have to tell you, my knowledge is that there hasn't been a substation done in many, 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 many years. I mean, there's the east, there's west, the northwest, and the east side one, so, or south side one. So I know we'll have to like figure out those numbers coming forward. Also, looking at some of the projects that are on here, and I know that y'all vetted these out of 400 projects, but my previous history is that we didn't fund so many outside agencies, and I don't know if that's something, I mean, I know we do delegate agencies in our annual budget, and we fund them through our maybe CDBG dollars, or maybe through now ARPA dollars, or whatever those dollars are. But now that I'm seeing new facilities, our expectation as we fund maybe K-9 Warriors and maybe Magic Theater, our expectation is not that we fund them annually for maintenance or any of those additional costs. It's just going to be this one upfront bond dollars that are going to go to this, but there's not an expectation that we continue to fund them. You know, I know we've did this on the Phil Harburger Land Bridge project back in the past where it was just a one-time done deal, but you know, it seems like we have, you just said 1,165 city facility buildings and structures within our inventory, and yet we're funding outside agencies. And so I understand, I come from a nonprofit background also, and so I understand the need for additional funds for people to find, but also our city taxpayers deserve dollars that go to their city facilities and upgrades to community centers, libraries, substations, everything, 311 centers, your buildings that you work out of. And so I just want to make sure that our dollars, I would like to see the list of the 400 facilities or 400 projects that came through to make sure that we are not negating our city buildings and our city infrastructure, to make sure that our city dollars that taxpayers are paying for go to the projects that are needed. Thank you.
Yeah, on Magic Theater, that city facility, that's our building. That's one of those 1,000 property. On a K-9, we have two council very strongly supportive of those projects. Everybody, especially two. It happened to be in Council District 6, but also we have other council districts supportive of that. It's very good program.
And Jennifer, good question or point that you made. We're talking about capital dollars, so there's nothing to talk about, you know, ongoing operating funds. These are capital dollars or one time. Of course, when you do fund an outside agency, there will be an interlocal agreement with them where, you know, we will decide, you know, if I'm thinking like the zoo or botanical gardens or something like that, you know, we'll want to negotiate, say, you know, for in exchange for these capital dollars, you know, we want it open to the public, you know, so many days out of the week at no charge or something like that. So those details will have to be worked out.
And that's a good point, Rod. I mean, like, we are spending city dollars, and so you bring that up, like, what access are we going to have to the K-9 Warriors facility as a citizen? Can I walk in there? I mean, what's going to be the access point for that 2.25 million that we're putting in there?
We'll share with you what they provided us, and if there's anything that you know, you would like to see us negotiate, we welcome your comments and your feedback.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
If we could, your mic, there you go, your mic's on now.
Okay, yes. Melanie Cawthon with District 7. So I think this maybe reiterates what Jessica was saying, but I just want to make sure that we get the justification for the public benefit of those private investments that the municipal, that our bond dollars are going to. So I think that's what you're saying, but I just want to make sure that we're getting that justification. Then my second question is, of the the facilities that are staff recommendations, are there other resources for securing funds where we're using bond dollars, where they could have alternate other sources that aren't being secured because they're getting the bond dollars when they have maybe some other options. So I just want to know if there's anything like that in the ones that are being recommended. And then on the facilities that are doing internal or renovations or modifications, what are the accessibility features that are part of those plans, especially looking at the Magic Theater. So if there's a list of what those renovations are within those facilities, I want to know how accessibility, and I'm talking about ADA accessibility, universal design accessibility, not can I walk in the door access, but if I could get a list of those features. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, we really haven't designed this project to show you a plan how we are going to handle. Anytime we do brand new project or renovation of the existing project, we have to get permit like anybody else. We had to meet existing requirement on that day, from energy efficiency, ADA requirement, TCEQ requirement, we have to get permit. The other question you had or concern regarding when we are giving money for the other than city building, first of all, we sign a funding agreement with them. All of these projects, at the end of the day, we have outside bond counsel. They are not city staff, they are outside bond counsel. They review every project to see this project, it meets bonding requirement, because bond is really nothing more than we're borrowing money. Those project has to meet bonding requirement. Therefore, this project is going to be checked number of the time, first with funding agreement, then bond counsel will check each of these projects also.
I do think that's a great point, Ms. Cathan, that if, Razi, the general public may not be aware that in these renovations, rehabs, that the accessibility upgrades are going to be required. So perhaps that's something in the language that can be included so that the general public is made more aware of the wise investment of dollars that is going into our city facilities out there. That's a great point for consideration in the language.
And I guess the reason why I'm really curious is because I know that there are upgrades in the plans that are wanted, right, for access to the stage, not having to go in a side entrance instead of the main entrance, so the back door approach. And so I'm really curious about that particular investment, and are these dollars really going towards making this of greater access to the community, or are they not?
District 6 down here, I believe.
Hi, my name is Nicole Foy. I'm a representative of District 6, and I did have a process question that I think gets to some of what we're hearing about wanting to ask specific questions. You said meeting 2 and 3 is kind of when we'll be able to get into the projects. Are you going to have representatives from each of the facilities or the projects come and present? How comprehensive will that be? Or will it just be based on our questions?
Our intention was, in order to use our time more efficient, not have additional presentation, because you really have 2 more days, and we anticipate we are going to have a lot of public to come to hear from them. But if you have any question, let's say you want to know what are we going to do on Central Library, we will have the representative from library to discuss, or fire department or so on.
Right. I noticed that you have a lot of city representatives, but some of those outside, I didn't know if they're asked to be here also to answer questions that come up.
Yes.
We could, yes.
Matter of fact, we will be sending an invitation to those folks that have requested money, that are recommended for funded, that have projects that are recommended for funded. We'll ask them to come and share with you their projects and what it is that they're asking to do with the bond dollars.
Okay. Thank you.
So to Ms. Foy's point, Rod and John, so if a committee member, right, we're middle of the night, we wake up and we have a question about one of these projects, we are emailing only John our question to be looked into. Is that correct?
Sure. You can email John, and then what we want to do is we want to come to the next meeting and we want to state it, out here so everybody knows we have these following questions from these committee members, and in 48 hours, we will send a response to the committee with all of our answers. So once again, we want to be transparent. We want everyone to know what the question is, and we want everyone to know what the answer is.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lisa Taylor, District 9. Kind of going back to the process, is there a specific rubric score for each one of these projects to be on the staff recommendations? And then my second question, I know you showed the criteria, but I'm trying to understand, was there any consideration at all for whether to make this more palatable for the voters of each district, that there was some representation of at least one project for a district? Because I think there are a few districts that have no facilities projects, including ours. And so I'm just trying to understand how in a process like this, that I think we started back in at least May, that we don't see any of our projects on here. And so that's what I'm trying to find out, if there is a specific score that we can point to.
First of all, you're right, like facility, very few district has a facility project, not everybody. But we try to make sure, other than facility, every district has a number of the parks project. Every district has drainage project. Majority has 2, few has 3, and very few has only 1. But sometimes those 1 is very large drainage project, and roadway project is same. Also, we have this time 100 million for failed street. They are really almost gravel street. They are in bad shape. We call them F street, which is failed. We have 100 million for that, and distributed based on size of the council district and the condition. Any council district has more roadway to maintain. I know you are not on the street committee, but at least I want to make sure you know how we did. And any council district has more roadway to maintain, and any council district has a poor roadway condition, they got more money. We did not divide 100 million by 10, each council to get 10 million. Therefore, you're right, at the end of the day, most of the council is getting not exactly equal amount, but close enough. But certain council is not getting maybe facility, but they're getting more roadway, or they're getting more parks, or drainage, and sometimes combination of all.
Let me tell her about the scoring. We will, part of what we get to you in the next 48 hours, we will share with you the score, how each of these projects scored. But, as I said earlier, you'll see some projects that we're recommending for money that maybe their score is not as high as some that didn't. We spent a lot of time with council, helping us prioritize this. We looked at, like immediate need, public safety, like what do we have to do right now? Fire station 10 with the floor collapsing, obviously we need to do something about that. So we placed some priorities on that. Some projects also have like a citywide appeal to them too, that you got to consider. The central library, it happens to be downtown in District 1, but I'd like to think that people from all over the city go there and use that facility. There's other things, Sunken Gardens, Brackenridge Park, they have citywide appeal, even though they happen to be, located in Districts 1 and District 2. So, that kind of played into that as well. So, but we'll share with you the scores. And, once again, you're looking at staff's recommendation. You're here to check us and to ask those tough questions and to deliberate and, make a recommendation to council as to what makes sense at the end of the day.
Are you going to recognize me?
Go ahead.
Chris, can you recognize me?
Yes, ma'am. I think you're one of these. Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw her, then you, Ms. Suarez.
I have 2 questions and 2 comments.
Firstly, I saw the deck on sustainable design for existing and new buildings, and I'm wondering, in the municipal projects, whether new or retrofit, how closely did you work with the Office of Sustainability to come up with these projects, or was it based on facility needs that they had mentioned? And it says we will continue to work with them, and I'm wondering how closely we're working with sustainability as a goal in any kind of new project.
Yeah, we work
funding.
with them very closely on selecting this project. They have our project list. And also really the important part during the design and construction, that's the time is really rubber hits the road. We are going to work with them very closely to make sure we design for their standards.
It's very similar to the accessibility, I think, as far as the language that moves forward with these projects if they do move forward. And the Petco Love Canine Center, I did my research before I walked in here because I'd never heard of this project. I know there's local people that are doing something similar. So the Petco just gave them $2 million. And it is my understanding that the dogs that are trained, that are coming from the animal care facilities, are leaving the state to be trained. Are they going to come back and serve our city? As to her point as well, is, how accessible is this project to our community instead of a national project where some of these dogs may go off to Montana or somewhere else where we don't know?
We are certainly going to send them an invitation to be here at the next meeting, so that way you can ask them that question and they can share with you their plan.
And the biomedical, same thing. That is not a public access place. We don't go look at monkeys over there. How can we get more information on how this can benefit the whole of the community?
Absolutely.
And not a very particular interest?
Absolutely. And I want to reiterate what Razi said about sustainability. We work very closely with Doug Melnick. So as these projects get approved, that's where the work comes in. One, we got to meet code, right? We got to meet the electric code. We got to meet the energy code. We'll do that. But plus we're working real closely with Doug to make sure that we're furthering the climate action plan that council adopted.
Well, back to the generators. This is probably on everybody's mind. Has there been any kind of study, I suppose, where there are alternative things than just getting a gas generator that could be more sustainable, that could go longer into the future instead of ones that go, solar backup? I don't know.
Right.
Have those things been considered as far as cost effectiveness for the long term?
We will, I believe so, but let us, that's a good question. We will dig further and provide you some information in our letter to you guys in 48 hours.
Thanks, Rod. Thank you, Ms. Kaplan. Ms. Flores, and then Ramiro.
Thank you. I have a few comments and a couple of questions. Since one of your guiding principles is equity, I'm interested in finding out where all of these projects are going to land in which district, so that if I am talking to my neighbors, I can tell them that these are the things that are being promoted for this area, and therefore we should vote positively for the bond election. And I realize that District 3 reps here today are promoting their police substation in that area, but I'm wondering if the police budget out of the city is enormous right now for policemen and for cars and for guns and all of that. So I'm really looking at whether that is going to increase some more and take more money out of the city budget. Further, I live on the south side of San Antonio here, near the city, near the inner city. And one of the things that we're seeing right now is that since I live near the river, many of us are being displaced out of our homes because of the development of the river. And so I see the Greenways is getting $110 million. And I'm wondering if that's not going to impact further the displacement of people along those greenways, and whether that money might not be used better in some of the projects that we need here for the development of city facilities. And I realize that Mr. Jim Bailey is part of the the infrastructure here, and he is part of the Greenways as they activate, and I'm wondering whether there is a conflict of interest there. And finally, senior citizens. I'm a senior citizen, and there is not one senior citizen center in all of D5, not one. And District 5 has a lot of us living there. And it would be, I think, beneficial to us in that part of the city to have a senior citizen center that we could go to, feel safe in participating there, that would be built close to us, that we would have access to it. So I think accessibility is very important. I think what you're saying is very important, but it's also accessibility for all of us who need to get places and get to places safely. But if we could do away with a Greenway, $110 million, and put it into some other things that we absolutely need, we might have enough money to make some really big changes in the city. Thank you.
And I just wanted to real quick clarify, there are actually two comprehensive senior centers in District 5, one at Normal Oil Park and one on Presa Street. So we do have two, and then we have some smaller part-time nutrition sites as well. So I can provide you with that list and addresses so that you can take a look at those. Thank you.
Let me comment real fast. As I'm hearing most of the comments here, and it became known that I was going to be one of the co-chairs for the bond, and I had a few folks that reached out to me, and my first suggestion to them was to talk to the city council person in that district. Ultimately, being realistic about our roles and responsibilities is each of you as committee members are appointed by a city council person. And so once we make our decisions as a body, it's gonna go back to the city council to sign off on it. So one of the things I'm suggesting is that certainly as committee members that you communicate really well with your council members, because that will help us with this process. I mean, it's a very daunting task. I know I looked at it, and for a moment, I just kind of chuckled to myself when I saw that we're the lowest of the budgeted committees, 134 million versus streets and drainage. I'd rather be on this committee probably than that one there, because to me, it would be even more daunting. So I just want to try to help us keep us kind of focused a little bit, but also realistic, but just to encourage each of you to make sure that you're communicating really well with the person that appointed you in what district you represent. A question for the staff would be, could you kind of back up and give us a timeline on when you started receiving the proposals, the year, and when did you start making your decisions? And part of that, the reason again why I asked that question is because there has been some turnover. I'm guessing there's been turnover on council when you first started getting and grading these projects.
Good question, Dwayne. Late last year, almost same time now last year, I started with a few of my staff, met with every council district and asked them about their project list. We met with many departments, asking them their need. But since the May election, we had number of the council's office was changed. Again, in June or so, we met with them again, and we provide staff recommendation, work with them. We had, since summer, we had twice meeting. I met one time with my staff, and the second time, Rod, which is assistant city manager, joined me. We met with every council district, unfortunately online because of the COVID, and we discussed the project, and majority of the staff recommendation, they were happy. We did some minor changes, and this is staff recommendation. Your committee and other committee is going to be providing your recommendation to council comes in January. It is completely out of our hand, this project. We are here to provide you information. If the citizen comes here next meeting and asking about project, we take that one, scope it, and cost estimate, and bring back to you, present to you, and you will decide is a project needs to be included or not.
Thank you.
I think this young man over here had his hand up first and then you. Okay. Yes, sir.
There you go. I guess I have this, of those projects that didn't make this list, did any of those include facilities for mental health treatment?
I don't remember. We have to check.
We're having a near epidemic in the country and in Bexar County of teen suicides, veteran suicides, domestic violence. I hear that there is a not insignificant portion of those people that are in our jail really should be in mental health facilities. If there is one in that also ran group of projects, could you possibly bring it to us?
Sure.
Let us consider that.
Sure.
Great point. Mr. Cantrell, I'm going to take it from District 8. Perhaps Razi is the next closest mental health project. Where did it stand on your list?
Yeah.
We will
Make
look
it
for it.
very, very specific.
I mean, we're leaving it to the private sector right now, and they're not doing a very good job. They're making a bunch of money, but they're not treating the problem.
Very real. That's a very real concern. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Deanne Cole, District 2. It sounds like that there was, from what I understand, a bond committee that presented to the city staff and vetted each of these projects. And so I know that time is of the essence, and we've got to get a lot done in a very short amount of time. But going back to, I think, Jennifer's point about the police substation and what it's going to look like, and even the Magic Center, I think of all of the committees, the facilities is the one that lends itself most to visuals and knowing what you're going to get, what you're paying for. And so is it possible, I understand that we don't have the time to have all these different agencies present, but I guess originally presented. And so could we have for our binder additions for each of the ones, like for instance, the ACS hospital build? It's very clear. They're working out of a 2007 hospital building, and they have plans for what the new hospital build would look like and how much better it would serve the city. Or for instance, like Ella Austin, these ones that need improvements. You can walk into the big auditorium in Ella Austin in June and know, wow, they don't have an AC unit. I mean, so I think, and I do know that we're going to get to go on that tour, and that's also going to be, from what I understood, around December 14th or something, and that's
December 4th.
4th, okay. So we at least get to do that, but just having even if it's not exactly the police substation, this is what we're looking at. This is the size, this is the amenities of it, or the Magic Theater. That would be a really easy do. Here's where we have our handicap accessible, and knowing everything has to be to code, of course, but it just seems like if we could have just even a page for each of these, rather than just 2 sentences about what it is, that's asking for all of us to have a lot of imagination for something that we need to believe in enough to recommend and be able to sell.
Let me address your concern. Good question, first of all. Unfortunately, none of this project has been designed. When project end up being funding, first thing we hire a design engineer or architect. For example, we are building police substation in Council District 1, North Sunbury, address is 2020 North Sunbury. We had a number of the community meeting. First of all, facility has to design to meet whoever is going to use that facility, in this case, police. Secondly, it has to design such to fit in the community we are building this project. We end up getting number of the community meeting. We present them very early stage where we are preliminary design, get input from them, and start designing. Unfortunately, for Police Council District 3 substation, we haven't designed yet. We haven't even bought the land yet. We don't know where it's going to be. We know it's going to be in Council District 3, but what size? Is it going to be 3-acre land or 7-acre land?
And if I could just add, with all due respect, but you have designed it enough to know this is how much money it's going to cost. And so, you know, basically, okay, it'll be, I don't know how big police substations are, but like 20,000 square feet or something like that. It doesn't even have to be what the final is. But I think just being able to see, it'll look something like this, or it'll serve this many, or it'll employ this many people, or that kind of thing. I think that would be super helpful in all of us knowing kind of what we're paying for and what we are going to recommend.
Rusty, I recall when I did this just under 10 years ago, to Ms. Cole's point, when we were trying to debate putting a fire station in District 8, the fire department was able to come forward and explain why expanded facility was needed in that district, whereas other districts may have also had needs, but it wasn't. So just any background information you can get. We understand if the renderings and the drawings may not exist, but any of that data information to support the cause of public safety in that area and why it was needed or why that was important on the top of their list, perhaps could help to the best of our ability. Very good, Ms. Cole.
So we got one over here. Before Nathan makes his comment, I want to say one of the things that I attempted to do was I attempted to go back in and look at the minutes from the 2017 bond, in particular from this committee. And one of the things, the facilities committees, one of the things I thought about trying to do was look at some of the projects back in 2017 that were important, but that did not get funded, and see if maybe we move forward 5 years later in some of the ones that may have been somewhat in a second tier in 2017 got moved up to a priority in 2022. And I guess what my thoughts were, I guess as I'm listening to everyone, number one, let me compliment each of you all and compliment the council member that appointed you based on the questions and conversation that is here. I believe that a lot of thought and consideration went into appointing you all specifically to this committee. Very impressive questions. But so I guess what I was thinking was, so if we had a train and it was on the track and that train has left the station, and so when it left the station, it was some projects that were identified. And as it got down the road, there was some new projects that tried to get on the train, but the train had already moved down the road. So again, I'm just trying to encourage everyone. The discussion is very respectful, but I'm just trying to encourage everyone to kind of just take a deep breath and look at the projects. That valid question raised about there are no projects for facility in my district. Very valid question, but maybe some information to each of the committees showing a breakdown for the total amount of projects going to each of the districts can help everyone see, even though you're not getting a project in this committee, it's pretty good balance across the 5 different sectors. That's one. But then again, the other one is just to make sure that we understand that what you're saying and what you're suggesting isn't valid. And please don't interpret me trying to say that the train is left and you can't get a project on. But I mean, I'm just thinking about from staff's perspective and what all they went through and all of the conversations that they had. And then there's a new group of people that come in with some different priorities. I'm not saying that they're not valid, but it's just, bear in mind, I think the train has moved down the station a little bit. Go ahead, Nathan.
Manuel, we'll come to you next, but Mr. Morgan is first.
Nathan Morgan, District 10. Just out of curiosity, do we have a feel for our track record in accurately projecting the costs of these projects? And if and when, after the bond is passed and there's surplus as a consequence of any of these projects coming in under budget, does this committee have any input on how those surplus funds would be spent? Thank you.
First of all, when we do on project cost estimating, we use the 6% inflation for 5 years. Most of the project is done sooner than 5 years. On facility and on park project, most of the time is needed so much, we spend all of the fund is that project has. On roadway and drainage, it's possible to have some surplus. One of our recommendations for this committee and other, when you provide additional project lists for the council will use that list to fund if there is any saving. It doesn't come back to you, but they have your project list. They may end up funding those projects you're recommending if there is any available funding or available saving.
Thank you, Raji. I think we got Manuel, Ms. Brune, Ramiro down here, and then to you, Mohammed. I'm going to try to keep that, oh, and Jennifer in there.
Yeah, I think Ramiro had been trying to ask a question before. Go ahead.
You have had it up for Ramiro. I apologize.
Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everyone. I agree. We have an amazing committee here asking great questions. So I have a rather simple one, I think. So the Carver Branch Library, for example, I'm just curious. So we're talking about a renovation expansion of the library into a regional branch library. What is a regional branch library versus a regular branch library? And what determines where a regional branch library should go?
Let me ask Kathy from library. She can probably answer that one better than I could.
I should have started walking up when you said library. Sorry about that. So the Carver Branch Library, what we envision is really an area branch library. So it still would be serving the district, but it would be our largest branch.
And are there other regional libraries like that that you're describing anywhere else?
Not, this would be the first.
So what makes it able to serve a wider population than a regular branch library?
Right. So right now, the Carver branch is about 12,000 square feet. This would increase it by 10,000 square feet to a total of about 22,000. That's our largest branch at that point. And so that would increase our capacity to serve the community.
So this was done rather than just building another library in the area. Is that why this was the approach?
Yes.
And so
to kind of leverage an existing branch.
Okay. And so in other areas, like for example, District 6, where there may be a request by the community for a particular library in another area, could it also be assumed that one of the other area libraries could be expanded in that same way to serve a wider population?
Yes, we can definitely expand branch libraries. The biggest consideration is having enough land at the site to do so.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to jump to actually Ms. Rebecca Brune because she has not had a question yet.
Okay, very good. Sorry, I'm Rebecca, and I am District 9. I hope this is not a difficult information request to ask for, but I think it would be helpful is when we get the list of all the projects, and there's 400, I'm assuming there's probably going to be libraries and or community centers as part of that. And it would be helpful if I had to look at, a list of inventory by district. So how many are in each district, and also the date that they were built, as well as when they had their latest renovation, and if possible, square footage, just from a lens of equity, right? If part of my role is beyond District 9, but also to think about how to support and acknowledge the projects going forward, I just would like to know what that inventory is and have that context. Just when I look at those other projects, assuming that there are going to be libraries and community centers. And also,
I think we can work on your request, but it's not going to be 48 hours. That's not request.
Okay, and then can I add to the community centers, of those which are multi-purpose? Are they senior centers or are they a combination and multi-purpose? Thank you.
If you agree to take it on, to me, that's a daunting task. If you're all in, go for it. But I mean, because we can funnel that down a little bit and just get what you can. I mean, you've got your day job to do as well. So I'd hate to leave the impression to Ms. Brune and to others of the committee that this is something that can be done, and we're hoping it can. Is this realistic?
Luckily, most of the 400 project is street and drainage, not too many facility.
Let us take a look at that, Chris and Rebecca. We'll let us see what we can do. I agree with Razi. I asked for a little bit of latitude on that one. Let us see what we can do. We'll try to give us about a week or so, and we'll get you what we can in that time. If that works.
Right. And I guess I just want to make the point, because earlier we talked about, Ms. Flores said that there were no senior centers, right, in her district, and yet there were 2. And I don't have that information. So if I'm listening to not just individuals in the room, but we have 2 community meetings where we've got public saying, listen, this is not existing in my district. I would like to be empowered with the knowledge to be helpful, right? Sure. So this is less about me wanting information or trying to make a difficult request. It really is about having context as we look at each of these projects and being able to be helpful.
Absolutely. No, and that's our job. Our job is to give you all the information that you need to, 1, go back and talk to your community, but 2, to make the very best recommendation that you can. So let us see what we can do. We may not be able to give you everything that you asked for, but give us a week and we'll get you something.
Did you want to say something?
No, I just, as Rebecca was finishing her comments, and then Raj stated that the reality is that's what staff is for. There's only so much that we can do as volunteers, because we're all volunteers and they should have that information. All right.
Okay, so we're going to, in respect of time, this meeting is till 8 o'clock. We can stay here as long as everybody likes. All of my children should be in bed, not to say that they are. But for the respect of everyone's time, we should try to close as close as we can to 8. And so I know that there are several folks that have raised their hand that have asked questions. I'd like to just go around, and anyone who has not asked a question that would like to comment, for instance, Ms. Graham over here, who has not spoken.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how to phrase this without sounding oppositional. I'm a little confused after Dwayne's last statement as to exactly what our role is. If we are to sort of take this as staff has recommended it and this is what council has said they wanted, why is there a citizens committee?
I'll take a stab at that. Being that this is the second, nowhere near the amount of experience that Dwayne has, but so as you heard, we are going to get public input from 2 meetings. This body has the ability to make a motion, a recommendation to council of any color, size, projects, whatever we wanted to include. The only thing is our bucket is facilities. We should not go into streets, parks, linears. As much as we probably each have a small passion, a little desire to do so, we are over facilities. Now, you have heard staff comment that they are going to be modifying some of the dollars, allocations, and possibly some projects over the next couple of weeks based on additional input that they have. The goal, when this gets passed in February by council, is that we have a unanimous decision recommended by staff and city council to move a package forward. And that happens through what we're doing here with public input. Staff may think that some of these projects are in the best interest of the city of San Antonio, but us as citizens and community leaders of our districts, We are going to advise them and give them recommendations with some words of wisdom, whatever it may be, on how best to use these dollars for the city of San Antonio. That is a recommendation to council. So while Mr. Dwayne is very correct in a lot of the comments, we do have the ability to modify and recommend to council. But in spirit of that, I'm going to let him speak, is at the end of the day, the goal is for unanimous decision in February to support an investment in San Antonio.
Yeah, so my apologies for sometimes I tend to try my best to just get straight to the point. And so for me, even when I got asked to be on this committee or participate in the bond, the first thing in my mind was, okay, there's some things in my community that I know about that I would like to see become a part of it. And then, you know, as co-chair, I immediately had to change or adjust my thinking that I have to listen to each of you all and place a priority on what it is that you want to see done or talk about or possibly participate in the bond, and set aside my singular perspective and see it from all of you all's perspective. That's one. But then understanding the process, at the end of the day, we're going to present this to the citizens of San Antonio to vote on this bond package. What this bond package is going to look like is going to come from city council. Ultimately, it's going to come from city council. So I apologize if I may have confused that, and if staff, if you want to correct me if I'm wrong, but ultimately what the bond package is going to look like, that's going to go before the citizens, is going to come from city council.
You're absolutely right. This group, as Chris stated, is you're going to make a recommendation to the city council on what you believe, you know, these two buckets should look like. And as I advised you, I would throw in some extra projects and say, should you decide to make any buckets, you know, make these buckets bigger, you should fill in with these projects. But at the end of the day, you're making a recommendation to council, and council will have the final say on that February 10th meeting. You know, they're going to decide, you know, they're going to take your recommendation. They may tweak it a little bit. They may take what you recommend. They may just take it, but they may tweak it a little bit. And ultimately what they decide on that day is what the voters are going to vote on.
Thank you, Rod. So it is hitting 8 o'clock, actually, to the T. Is there anybody that has not spoken that has a question?
Chris, just real quickly, you know, I know we're running out of time. I was on the bond facilities committee last time around. And so I know that there were some projects that didn't get funded. And so, my question or two.
Manuel, I appreciate you interjecting. I'd like to get the general feel of the committee. It is 8 o'clock. We all agreed, or the schedule was until 8 o'clock. There are certain questions that can be emailed to our point of contact, John, who will relay that to staff. I'm not trying to discount or discredit your question, but I'd like to see is there anybody who has not spoken? I'd like to make sure that everybody had a chance to speak at least one time. You okay with that, Dwayne? Okay, is there anybody that has not spoken that would like to speak? Okay, can we get a show of hands who would like to continue on with questions for staff? That continue on with questions. Got it. Okay, we're going to continue on. We'll have this little exercise again in about 10, 15 minutes. So, Manuel, please go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. I really, you know, I know that we're running close in time and we all have other responsibilities and obligations. My question is one, since Rossi said that there was no design to any of the projects as of yet, right? There's no designs. My question, I can't read your name, Ruth, but you made a good point about alternative sources of energy. Are any of these projects included solar?
We have not designed this project yet.
So could you include solar in all these projects?
We work very closely with our sustainability department, whatever they
Okay.
recommend we include.
And my second question is, since there's, the budget is real tight, and so is there any way that we can expand the amount of, budget requests? Because there's other projects that deserve some merit and to be even looked at. I mean, how many applications were submitted? Can we actually increase the bond funding, the request?
After the public votes on the bond, first Saturday, May
No,
of next year.
before the bond is voted on.
No, sir, because we are already $1.2 billion.
That's at 1.2, and as I mentioned, your bucket has been determined by council, but I would still recommend that you throw in a few extra projects, because that day council can decide, hey, we want to make the facilities bucket bigger, because I imagine all of you are going to go back and talk to your council members. You're going to say, hey, we really wanted that project. So if council makes the bucket bigger, you want to have some projects that they could add.
Jordan, and then I know Jennifer's been chomping for a little bit, and then we had one person over here.
Sure. So Chair, I move that we limit discussion for the remainder of this meeting and future meetings to 3 minutes for both committee members and chairs.
I second that.
Does everybody, can we all respect an attempt to hold ourselves at 3 minutes? I'm not going to say, are you okay? We don't take a vote. Just everybody be mindful of time. Thank you, Jordan, for that.
So
Let's be mindful of time. I'm going to be looking at it.
Well, so I got a motion and a second. I mean, if we're going to follow Robert's rules, we need to take a vote.
Okay, motion and a second. Restate the motion.
Motion to move that we limit discussion for the remainder of this and future meetings to 3 minutes for both committee members and chairs.
So we have a motion by Jordan and a second by Jennifer. Is there any discussion? We have discussion over here.
I actually have a question. Is that 2 minutes per, 3 minutes per question? Or could someone have several 3-minute questions throughout the meeting?
As motion, it's 3 minutes, and then we can go back to round robin. It's basically following what council does. And I'd ask COSA legal if we have any clarifying questions for that.
It would be 3 minutes first round. Then your second round, you're going to have to decide. So it would be 3 minutes per question. It's your turn. Ask the question. You have 3 minutes. Over the each person or how many ever rounds, then you can have kind of the second round. If the second round is done. The discussion is here.
Do we have any further clarifying questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. I'm going to have to say that that's majority, or does somebody want to count? I think that's majority. Any opposed, please raise your hand. We have one in opposition. Are there any abstentions? Please raise your hand. One abstention. All others voted in favor. The motion carries. Dwayne, you good with that?
Excellent.
Okay.
Make sure you keep that time, 3 minutes.
Now that we have been called to Robert's Rules of Order, thank you, Jordan. This meeting adjourns at 8 p.m. I'd like to ask legal to give us the steps on moving forward. If I understand, in order to move forward, we need to take a motion to move forward, to extend the meeting, the time of the meeting.
And you'll need to take the time. You would make a motion that it's the agenda states meetings to end at 8. You would make a motion to extend the time by 15 minutes or 20 minutes. You would need somebody to second that motion. You would need to take a vote and have a quorum. So that would be 17 or more.
And the quorum that votes for it must remain the entire duration. You would hope. Okay, so Robert Rules of Order has been called to the table. I'd like to see if somebody would make a motion to extend the meeting, and for what duration.
I move that we extend the meeting by 30 minutes to 8:30 or less. I mean, if that's possible. 30 minutes at max.
We have a motion for 30 minutes to 8:30 with a second.
30 minutes would be 8:37.
Clarifying, is it 30 minutes from now or 30 minutes from the end of the meeting?
There we go.
Motion and a second to move the meeting to 8:30. Is there any dialogue or questions or discussion?
Does anybody else have anything to say?
Correct.
No, that's my question. That's my clarifying question before we vote.
Yes.
So we'll deal with the motion on the table first, and then we'll get to any other questions.
No, I thought this was,
Is there any other dialogue to the motion that's being posed before us? So once we extend the meeting, we're going to continue the dialogue with staff.
And just to clarify the motion, it doesn't mean we stay till 8:30. If you're done in the next 5 minutes, we can leave, so.
Is there any further dialogue or discussion? To restate it, the motion and the second is to extend the meeting till 8:30. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Quorum's not present.
Quorum's not present. Is it quorum 17 or quorum of those that are in the building?
You have to have a majority of the majority of the table.
Those that aren't here already made their vote that they want to accept. Okay. We're right on the cusp. Hey, who can, everybody count? Somebody count. 26 and there was 13. All in favor of 12. 26 and there was 12, so the motion fails. Okay. Got it. So the motion fails. As we conclude this meeting, I'd like to add, Dwayne, final comments?
Thank you all for your time.
And I'll just, the binders are for you to take home. December 4th, can we get, John, can you get that date? I believe, Jordan, I don't think, I didn't see the December 4th date in our packet. So we could get that out. We know everybody's getting up to walk away, but again, thank you all for your time, energy, and effort. And if you have questions, email them to staff. To John, email your questions to staff. Thank you, everybody.